Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Mr. Benevento. I mentioned when we met that I was going to give you a compilation of economic reports warning of economic crashes that relate to climate change. I'm going to give you this. It includes peer-reviewed economic studies. It includes a Nobel Prize-winning economist's sworn testimony. It includes reports by the Bank of England, the Bank of France, a consortium of central banks, the Bank of International Settlements, which is kind of the bank of sovereign and central banks, reports by Freddie Mac, by insurance publications, Risk and Insurance, by Moody's, by Standard & Poor's, by First Street Foundation, by McKinsey, the consulting firm, by BlackRock. What I'm going to ask you to do, because you're a busy person and I don't expect you to read this whole thing, but I'm going to ask you to have somebody at EPA read it and summarize it for you. Ask for a report from somebody at EPA saying, what is this thing that Senator Whitehouse gave me? What are the conclusions we should draw from it? And then I'm going to ask you when that's done to let me know that that's done so that I know it got done. Will you do that for me? Will you have someone at EPA summarize this compilation in a memo for you and let me know when that is done?
Yes.
Thank you. Second ask. Senator Carper and I have asked the Inspector General of EPA to investigate Bill Wehrum for work he did at EPA that benefited a client of his from private practice. That's our allegation. Because the allegedly corrupt work is still on the books at EPA and because it affects policy, that IG investigation is still ongoing. Will you assure us that, as the number 2 at EPA, you'll make sure that EPA cooperates with the Inspector General investigation?
We will cooperate with the IG.
There is you have a returning person coming back to EPA to be Mr. Wheeler's Chief of Staff. She has not been amenable to or available to the Inspector General because she has been out of EPA. When she is back, will you make sure that if she has any relevant evidence about this investigation, that she cooperates with the Inspector General?
I will talk with Ms. Gunasakara when she comes back about that.
It is appropriate for her to cooperate with an Inspector General investigation, is it not?
The administrator has, I think every year since the last couple of years, has put out a memo detailing his belief that we should be cooperating with the IG, and we will do so consistent with the administrator's directive to all agency employees.
Good. When Mrs. Gunasakara Ms. Gunasakara was out of the agency, she set up a dark money operation, anonymous donor-funded operation, that worked in climate denial in the environmental space. She was also something called a senior fellow at something called the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which is a pretty notorious dark money funded climate denial shop, and also something called an advisor to the CO2 Coalition, which is another notorious dark money funded climate denial shop. Here's my question. Every employee at the EPA has an obligation of impartiality. It's an ethics rule. And it means that if you are making decisions that relate to people or interests or companies with whom you have a relationship, that relationship needs to be disclosed, and you need to take appropriate steps to make sure there's no conflict of interest. Is that a pretty fair statement of that rule?
Yeah, yes.
Generally?
Yes.
How are you possibly going to know that she is in compliance with that rule if you don't know who was funding her through this period?
Our expectation is that all employees consult with Career Ethics Council and receive guidance from them on what they can be involved in and what
Here's
they can't.
the problem. You haven't updated your ethics rules. You don't even ask about dark money conflicts of interest. You're still using ethics rules that predate the explosion of dark money that has corrupted our politics. So you actually don't know that information, and when you say go to the ethics people, you're going into a fixed game because they don't ask that question either because you haven't updated the ethics rules. So let me go back to my original question. How could you possibly know if she is behaving in violation of her duty of impartiality without knowing who her big funders were through this time when she was in her hiatus from the EPA?
We expect all employees to follow the ethics rules as they are written and to coordinate all their activities, their obligations with Career Ethics Council, and that applies for all EPA employees.
And you don't ask the right question through your Career Ethics Council, so that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. My time